Months in the making. Tonight is the night. The one where we look back at season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Ken Ray. Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. That is when we get together to talk Trek and Trek-related topics. This week, summing up season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. Pike, Spock, number 1, and the Enterprise are right where we met them. Burnham, Saru, and the Discovery crew are 1,000 years in the future. But together, they gave us 14 weeks of TV. What did you like? What did you not like? Do you want to lay bets on season 3? John's taking a little side action. Lines of communication are open. You can join our Zoom meeting. You can use the one tap from your smartphone, or you can call 669-900-6833, 669-900-6833, and it would be just like you being on with us if you were on with us.
That is true. That's exactly what that would be like. You know who is on with us right now?
No clue.
That's all the people in the chat.
Oh, hello, people in the chat.
They're already chatting. There's Lieutenant J, TL Coco, hanging out in the chat. There's Benjamin Miner. There's Matthew. Hey, Benjamin says, where's the Zoom meeting link? It's in the show description. So if you click on that, you will find the Zoom link and the phone number to call. There's Lars. There's Tomas. There is Keith. Keith says, hello, John, Ken, Earl, computer, and some guy from the future we've never heard of. There's Evan. There's Chuck. There's David. There's Casey. There's Kim. There's Josh. Just everybody. Everybody is in the chat right now. Barbara. Ria says, hi, Earl and John and Ken and everybody. So just so many people. Cosmo, hey, our buddy Cosmo hanging out in there as well. So good to see everybody there. And I know that we have like 300 people on standby right now on the phone. So I can't wait to get to at least 289 of them and see how we do tonight in taking your calls and your questions and your comments. And by the way, the plan is to continue this discussion next Tuesday night with a guest. So just go ahead and spoil that part. Let you know that if you don't get in tonight, or if you have further comments to make, oh, we'll do this again. There's a lot to unpack here with season 2, so we don't have to get to all of it tonight. And you're welcome, Tomas, for me saying your name right. I'm glad I had a 50-50 chance getting that right. So we would like to thank you all for checking us out here live on Facebook, or if you catch the video later at youtube.com/RoddenberryProd. That is cool, of course. And certainly if you check out the audio-only podcast, well, we welcome you there too. Wherever you find this, please hit like, please hit share, and let the world know that we'd like everyone to join us here on Tuesdays to talk Trek.
We've got stuff coming up. We got things coming up. We have a thing in Sansar. Not the thing in Sansar, but the thing in Sansar. Yeah, it's another thing in Sansar.
Yeah.
I'm just reading about it right now. I'm sorry, we didn't put it in our show notes. So,
yeah, I didn't. I've got the page up, though. Do you want me to pull it off of that?
Well, how about I say what it's called, and then you can say a bit more. We'll pretend like we actually rehearse this part. We got an event coming up in Sansar. It's actually in the Roddenberry Theater in Sansar. It is called A Crash Course in Star Trek with Roddenberry. Say, John, could you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, so the whole idea is that Rod wanted to dig a little deeper into grabbing video clips, interviews, archival stuff, and do what he is calling his crash course in Star Trek. So now mostly it's going to be driven by Q&A, but he does have some video that he's from, and the exact title of the video escapes me because, again, we didn't rehearse this part like we normally would just do a complete run through of the show before we do the show. So I don't have that in front of me, but it is focused on Gene Roddenberry. Dive even deeper into the life and work of Gene Roddenberry as his son Rod screens a special artist biography, reflects on the Roddenberry legacy, and answers fans' burning questions. And I'm sure that there are many burning questions. In fact, before we get to that, there was a burning question in here in the chat. Chris Riker says, pin identification class. John, I'm guessing the USS Dominoes. Sorry to disappoint, or actually, I really want to point this out, Chris. This is actually a pin from the 1964 World's Fair that a very good friend gave me, and I love that pin. Yeah, genuine, authentic relic from the 1964 World's Fair in New York. Kind of cool, huh?
It's pretty neat. Yeah, I'm going to see if I can find me one of them.
I hope you can.
Of course, I'm a 39 World's Fair guy myself, but I didn't wear my pin tonight, so sorry about that.
Yeah. Hey, the other thing, of course, that we want to make sure that everybody is aware of, and you know where I'm going with this, you know what I'm going to say. So please follow up on it. We are hosting our fundraiser for Scott Palm. Scott is an extraordinary individual. He is somebody who works with the Pop Culture Hero Coalition. That, of course, is founded by Chase Masterson from DS9, friend to the show. And Scott is a friend of ours and a friend of hers. He has been working tirelessly on a campaign within the Pop Culture Hero Coalition to address kids with disabilities and their peers. So it's a two-pronged approach for two reasons. One is to help those kids with severe physical disabilities to learn values of self-worth and self-identity. The other part is to reach their peers to teach values about inclusion and how to deal with kids who are not like them. So the more money that we raise through this fundraiser, the more Scott and his assistant can go to schools and implement this program. Scott, as you may know, has cerebral palsy himself, and he is an excellent advocate for people with disabilities. So go to the link that you will find at facebook.com/missionlogpod or twitter.com/missionlogpod. It will be pinned to the top of the page in both places. And if you donate even $1, that dollar gets doubled by the Roddenberry Foundation. Yes, the Roddenberry Foundation will match 100% every dollar that we raise. Now, we're being ambitious here, but the whole idea is to get this program out time and time again, over and over in as many schools as possible that can be reached by Scott and his assistant. He needs to travel with somebody physically to get into the schools and reach these kids. So again, go to our Facebook page, go to our Twitter page, click on that link, donate. Every little bit helps because every little bit gets matched and then doubled by the Roddenberry Foundation.
So, time for the poll question. I cannot believe last week's poll. I cannot believe
Why
the
not?
results from last week's poll because they're almost exactly divided. Almost. Because I'm seeing these decimals here, and I was like, why do we even bother with the decimals? And then I read the big numbers, and it's like, oh, okay, I get it now. The question was, do you think the beard was working? Of course, Spock, showed up, and he had the beard, and he had sort of the scruffy hair, and then the big reveal in the very last episode of season 2 was he had shaved his face, he'd cut his hair, he looked a bit more like the Spock, a bit more like the Spock that we were used to, the one that we've seen on screen, almost all the time, except for when he came back in Star Trek: The Motion Picture. He was a bit scruffy then.
Yeah.
So the question was, do you think the beard was working? Calling back to what Michael Burnham had asked him when they first met up in season 2 of Discovery. Here's Suit. 49.7%, freshly shorn 50.3%, almost evenly divided on do you like him with the beard, do you like him without the beard, which is kind of amazing.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that it's down to the decimal point on that.
It's one of those things too where I wish I could ask a follow-up question like, now is that just because it brings us back to the kind of Spock that you expect to see when you watch Star Trek? Or is it really that you thought the beard just wasn't working and you like Ethan Peck freshly shaved? I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll never know the answer to that unless people want to call in and tell us. 669-900-6833 or use the one tap from your smartphone or the Zoom link on the Facebook page. Just because Discovery is done, we're not done with polls. John, there's a question for this week.
Well, this week is pretty straightforward. We just asked you Star Trek Discovery Season 2, thumbs up or thumbs down? And right now, well, the last I checked was just moments ago, thumbs up 90%, thumbs down 10%. Fascinating. I'm glad to hear that because I think we hear from a lot of people from all walks of life with all points of view and some very kind of deep critical analysis. Some of that deep critical analysis very much in favor of Discovery and the things that they like in it. Some of it going deep into the things they dislike about Discovery. So Ken, as you just mentioned a moment ago, they could even share some of that critical analysis with us tonight if they call in.
Yeah, I certainly hope they will because otherwise this show's going to be a lot of you and me.
Right.
Yeah, so let me remind people one more time, 669-900-6833 is the phone number to call, 669-900-6833, or you can use the one tap from your smartphone to join us by video, or go to facebook.com/missionlogpod and click the link there. and you can be on video with us. What's really interesting about living in the future and working in the future, as we do compared to where we used to live and work, you can actually call in without calling in. That's what it's Adam, right, who did that, John? Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Adam Sloman, who is a listener all the way from the UK. That stands for United Kingdom. He lives in England, and he wanted to send in his thoughts about the show. So we're going to play that video for you here in just a second. We edited it down just a little bit, but he makes some good general points here that I think are going to kick off our discussion. So Earl, if you would do the honors and run the video from Adam, and we will be right back.
Good evening, Ken. Good evening, John. I'm sending a video message from the UK for tonight's episode. Obviously, the time difference means that it's really difficult for me to listen or watch live on Facebook. Normally, you guys keep me company on my commute to work Wednesday morning. But I just wanted you my thoughts on Discovery so far, what's been good, what's not been so good. So yeah, I think probably the weakest thing so far has been the stories that have carried across the whole season. Season 2 has been much better than season 1, in my opinion. And I think it's really interesting that now they've decided to do what a lot of people wanted to do in the first place, which is to throw the ship into the future and be free from the existing framework that exists around Star Trek, avoiding the C word there. If you look briefly back at season 1, it was supposed to be this Klingon war story, and then they got sort of 5 or 6 episodes in and went, actually, we're going to take a hard left, and the rest of the season is going to be about the mirror universe. And then suddenly you have to shoehorn in all this stuff about the whole debate of science versus faith, which is a really
So thank you so much to Adam for sending in that question. Incidentally, I got to hang out with Adam when I was in the UK recently, so that was very cool of him to send in a video for us to chat about. Now, I did cut it down a little bit. One of the things that he said in the video when he got into a little more detail was saying, you can take a story like the plot of Star Trek VI, where you've got an environmental catastrophe, you've got an assassination attempt, you have the political intrigue, you have peace in the galaxy at stake, and you could justifiably take a story like that and stretch it out over, say, a half a dozen or more episodes if you were to make that into a TV series or make that part of a TV series. He even jokingly said you could take an episode like Schisms and make that into multi-part TV. He was kidding about that one, of course. But his question raised a point that I guess was one of my overall notes for Star Trek Discovery Season 2, which was to say, well, at the end of the day, we had all this plot detail, and of course, we would do that in our recaps each week on Mission Log Live. But then at the end of the day, I asked myself, well, what's it all about? What's the story actually about? So you have a plot point and you go in one direction and then another direction and another direction. And there were two things that really stood out to me that were sort of the key what if story moments. And the first was early on. Ken, you and I both loved New Eden, that episode where we first visit Terra Elysium. And it feels like they're really setting up the possibility of a discussion about faith versus science. And that could be an idea thread that took us through the entire series. Now, as I recall, at the very end, when Burnham is about to make that jump in the time suit with the time crystal, don't forget, Spock says, yeah, you need to do this because the you now needs to go place those red markers throughout the past, the recent past, in order to get us here. And she says, oh, it's like a leap of faith. And Spock says, yeah, but it's kind of based on logic of what we need to do in this situation. And I felt like that was the sort of the, I felt like this was an end of a conversation that really had fizzled out.
Yeah.
Then the other big interesting idea, the other big topic that I felt we could have gotten into was artificial intelligence and what actually meant, what actually could be considered life within the sphere data or within control. What were they doing? Why were they doing it? It just turned into kind of the mustache twirling bad guy. Now, the upshot is we got a bunch of cool space action. I think Leland was scary enough. I thought Leland died really well. I thought that was an exciting special effect, and you were kind of pulling for that scene to happen. So there were plot points that happened that I felt like if all I'm following is just the plot, I'm okay with it. But it also felt at times like it was a slog to get to the points that didn't feel like they were big ideas anymore in the show. I don't want to ramble here too much about that, but that's where I'm on the same page here with Adam, and also that ELO poster rocks.
That ELO poster is great. Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, it feels like we were all reading each other's notes. Two of the things that I had here, and I did two stacks of notes. One was things that sort of disappointed me about season 2, and then things I really liked about season 2. And you and Adam have both hit on two of the things that I had on my list of disappointments. There was talk of examining faith in this season. Not something that I would have chosen to do if I were choosing, like what theme should we address, but okay. Having said that that's what we're going to be doing, they might have done it. And they didn't. It reminded me, honestly, of you and I have talked about episodes of Star Trek in the past where it's like, did they say anything important, or did they say it in such a way that we were made to think that we had seen something important? Do you know what I mean? Because there was like all the references to faith in the beginning that Pike had, and then that quick thing at the end. I think you're supposed to think that you actually saw an examination of something, and really we didn't that much. And the same thing with AI. It's a real threat. Honestly, I mean, it may be a wonderful thing. It may be fantastic the way it's employed. It may also be disastrous. And we are honestly right now living through finding out how this is going to play out, right? But let's say it's too heady for Star Trek Discovery. At the very least, you could talk about, humans potentially being the architects of their own demise and how we might avoid that, right? Even if you can't talk about AI because we don't quite know yet, or we don't have a, full understanding, or it's too much for the average TV viewer. I mean, any of those are reasons that you might not want to talk about artificial intelligence, like the actual, zeros and ones of the whole thing. But talk about the fact that this was a thing that we created that nearly killed us. Have we ever done anything like that before, people on this planet? Maybe that would have been a thing to address as well. There was lots of, they ran up against a lot of really big issues without actually trying to go over, around, or through them. They just sort of like ran beside it. And then it's like, okay, well, you're going 1,000 years in the future. You're going to stay, here, and we're going to move on.
Yeah. Well, right. It was like, here's a thing. Here's an idea, faith versus science. Now let's have a plot twist so we can set up the cliffhanger before the next episode.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with structure in that way, where you say, all right, well, we need to keep going from episode to episode, but also carry the story from episode 1 to episode 14. Like, I'm okay with building a serialized story here. But when you present something really provocative, really intriguing, and we all know Star Trek has dealt with ideas of faith and science before in its long storied history, why not just go there? Why not go there again and let that conversation play out in a new and interesting way with new and interesting characters? So that is one disappointment. But I tell you what, let's see if our next caller might have something to add to this conversation. Unless, Ken, you want to jump in here before we do that?
Well, before we get to the next caller, I want to remind people how they can be one of the next callers. 669-900-6833 is the phone number to call. 669-900-6833. or use the one tap from your smartphone, or use the link in the Facebook page, facebook.com/missionlogpod. And now, John, please don't let me interrupt you anymore. Get to our next first caller.
Yes, well, we have Jonathan standing by, and Jonathan dressed for the occasion. How are you tonight, Jonathan?
Good, sir. Thank you. Long-time listener, first-time caller. So kind of excited to be here. Cheers.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for calling in. I'm totally jealous of your jacket. I'm totally, for people who can't see, by the way, that's Picard from the movies. Is that correct?
Darmok, Picard in the Darmok jacket with actually a Roddenberry.com com badge.
Nice.
So good times.
Very cool. Very cool. What's
Cheers.
on your mind tonight?
Just a couple of thoughts about season 2. The first thing I wanted to, I'll start out with some of the more positive things, and they'll be very brief points. One is that I really
Oh no.
Oh no, you were just making your amazing point and then he dropped out. You're like, here's this awesome thing I'm going to say. Here we go. And then boom. And then crickets.
Oh, there we are. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Your audio would cut out. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes. So you were about to make your amazing point. Your amazing comment.
I was going to say that I really enjoyed the season finale, but I feel like it would have worked better as a series finale. That the way that the story concluded would have been an amazing way for them to say, okay, we've had this many years of this story that is Star Trek Discovery, and now we're going to fly them off into the future and leave that as kind of the cliffhanger for the imagination of the audience to take over, that we wouldn't actually see where they ended up or what they ended up doing and what their environment would be like. But we are where we are. I thought it was a great way to end the season, but might have served it better as a series finale. My second thought was that it also kind of reminded me of, and I'm going to do a little bit of a throwback here, an old show called Sequest. At the end of season 2 of Sequest, DSV, the entire ship and crew jumped forward about 20 years to the year 2032. And it was kind of a reset to kind of say, okay, well, we're going to basically wipe everything a bit clean and start over from the ground up. So this is kind of reminding me of that a little bit. Anyway, I don't know what your thoughts were on that before I jump into my last point, but.
Well, I know that when we were talking about a few weeks ago, the possibility they might just dump them off in the future, I was excited about that idea. John was not so much excited about that idea. I do know that I have worries about how they're going to do it, but I kind of like the fact that at least the whole thing's not going to be built on, okay, how do we explain that Michael Burnham knows Spock without us ever having heard of her? And how do we make this person meet that person? And should we go see the Telosians again? I like the fact that everything they're doing from now on is either going to be, I mean, obviously there's going to have been a Federation. There are going to have been all of these characters. And so, like, what of that survives 1,000 years, right? What do they come back to, or what do they, land in 1,000 years from now? It'll be interesting to have that without playing connect the dots the whole time to, well, we know they're 10 years before this, so let's go ahead and connect those. I kind of like it. That said, I love that idea as a series finale, but if you come up with an idea that good for a season finale, can you really say, all right, well, let's just sit on this for 3 to 7 more seasons? I mean, depending on how long they're going to go. But yeah, you say that, and I'm like, yeah, that actually would have been a lot of fun. But I am excited to see what we end up with, because they
for certain
shot them 1,000 years in the future. John?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't want that to be the end of Discovery, and we know that it's not the end of Discovery. They already announced season 3, but yes, that would have been super cool to end it like that, because it really felt that way. It really felt like we were wrapping up Discovery and we're starting this other mission with Pike and crew. And you could have ended both of those stories right there, because we can kind of infer what happens to Pike and his crew later on. Of course, we all want to see more, but I like the idea that it was a cliffhanger in the respect that we don't know what's going to happen. We want to see more, but it was a positive type of cliffhanger, like, wow, what's going to happen next? Instead of, oh my God, what's going to happen next, when it's Riker opening fire on Locutus,
right.
So, but yes, it totally would have worked that way. What else were you going to say tonight?
Okay, last point, because I know there's a lot of other people waiting. I have concerns about Captain Pike. Not that I didn't absolutely love watching Anson Mount portray him on screen, a great story, but my concern is that Pike was almost too perfect of a character, that there wasn't enough direction for him to grow. I feel like if we had to have a Pike series, he is such a perfect archetype of what we would hope for in a Starfleet captain, that he would really have very few places to go other than down, or else he would be incredibly boring for the course of years, where there's essentially no conflict. He's got a perfectly straight moral compass. I know I'm in the minority by being a bigger fan of Captain Lorca than Captain Pike, but it was a great captain. It was great to see him in Discovery, but I would be concerned if he, if they kept that character going continuously in the form of another series, rather than, as you suggested in the past, like standalone movies, once every year or something along those lines. And is there, I guess my last question to you before I leave is there such a thing as too perfect of a captain?
Interesting. Well, I don't think that Pike is too perfect. I see what you're saying. He is out of many of the characters that we've seen on Discovery so far, he is so admirable. He is the sort of the moral center of the show. Admiral Cornwell says that about him. It's like, even if everything else died, you embody what is best about us, which was a really great moment, I thought, for the characters, but it was a great moment for the show, acknowledging what Star Trek is about, But here's the thing. Pike, if you go back to Jeffrey Hunter's portrayal of Pike, that was a guy who was worn down. That was a guy who was ready to give it up. And this is a few years later, and this Pike has been reinvigorated, but he's walking around now with a couple of things. He was walking around with the guilt of not having been a part of what happened during the Klingon War. They brought that up at least once in the series. He's also now a guy walking around with this horrendous knowledge of his own future. Now, he played the moment the way that we want our hero to play the moment, which is, even though this will be terrible, I have to do this thing. I am compelled to do this thing. I brought up an article that I put in our notes, and Ken, I don't know if you saw it in there or not, but there's an article saying, it was on tour.com, Star Trek Discovery proves Captain Pike passed one test Kirk failed, which is the Kobayashi Maru. Kirk was the guy who was trying to cheat it. He was saying, oh, there's no way to win this thing, I'm going to cheat it. Pike was faced with a no-win scenario, and he had to go with the way that was ultimately self-sacrifice, to say, I have to do this thing, even though this is a terrible thing to do. There's no way that I win in this scenario, but I have to do it. So I think the way that Pike was written for Discovery, I think he's complex enough, I think he's deep enough, that even if he is the moral center, even if he's admirable, you can still present situations that are a challenge to him. I have faith that whoever might write that series, if we get that series or mini series, something, please give us anything with Pike in it again. I think they could do it. I really do.
Yeah, the one thing I would add to that is, back in the day, we might have thought that Kirk was a perfect captain. And, obviously watching it 50 years later, we see a bunch of things that Kirk did that were like, wow, I don't know. But at the time, I don't think we question Kirk's moral center, right? We don't question Pike's moral center, as John said, but I mean, you still come across situations. I mean, take Symbiosis from Next Gen. Mm-hmm. You had one planet that was completely dependent on selling drugs to another planet. They're both going to go through really terrible times if that whole, thing keeps going the way it's going, or if it gets broken up. Mm-hmm. And it took a long time, but they finally decided, okay, here would be the right thing to do. We didn't question Picard's moral center in that whole thing. He's a good captain. He's as good a captain at the beginning of that episode as at the end of that episode. And yet all through that episode, it's like, what do I do with this now? How do we deal with this now? I mean, those are the kinds of things that I think you could expect Pike to deal with. And then, of course, there's the impending doom that John talks about. And then you still have the possibility of going lower decks. I mean, number one would not just be a prop for Spock and Pike. Spock would not just be a prop for number one and Pike. I mean, they're still going to have their things going on, and it's a whole ship full of people. Boyce is wandering around someplace wondering who he can make a drink for crying out loud. seriously an older
Yeah.
character, you know, dealing with a bunch of younger characters. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that could still happen there. And then you also have, you do have Pike being Pike. You do
Okay.
have him being his moral center, and he might even be wrong. He might even follow his moral center straight into a, wow, that got lots of people killed. Yeah, see also the cage. Now that I think about it. So, and plus, like John said, please, anything more with Mike. More. And
By the way, there was something I had in my notes about the positives of season 2 of Discovery. There was just something about the chemistry between Pike and Number One, and I don't mean romantic or whatever. I mean, you sure go write fan fiction, whatever. But there was something that they were able to get across in the total show don't tell with these two. As soon as you have them on the bridge, giving a glance to each other, just in the simplest of dialogue, you get it. You get it that these two work together well. They respect each other. They know each other's next move. It was really cool to see. And I loved Number One. We got so little of her. We got a lot of Pike, but that's what I want to see going forward. It was that teamwork that I totally bought out of them, even in the short moments that we had with them, all kind of crammed into the end of the series. But that I just thought was so well played. That's a real testament to the actors, and again, not overwriting the scenes that they had.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I mean, this was a lot of food for thought, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
thanks,
Jonathan.
Thanks
hey,
for calling in. Yeah.
See you at
Yeah.
Vegas this year?
Sadly, no. I kind of have a deal with my wife that we will only go every other year. So it's, for the sake of the marriage. So yeah. So
All right.
not this summer, but definitely next summer. I will see you then. And with that, I yield the rest of my time. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm going to foolishly give out the number again, but we have a lot of people lined up. 669-900-6833 is the phone number to call, 669-900-6833, or you can use the one tap from your smartphone, or you can go to our Facebook page and join us there. Karen is up next. Karen, how's it going this evening?
Hear me?
Can now? Yeah.
Sorry about that.
What's on your mind tonight? Oh, hey. So I'm guessing she voted for the beard.
Yeah, check that shirt.
Yeah,
Nice.
Again, we need to quit doing that. So she's actually wearing a stylized version of Ethan Peck's Spock with a bit of the scraggly hair and the full beard going. So yeah.
I'm fully confident that I would also love shaved Spock. However, if I could see more of him along with Pike, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
no doubt. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, just picking out what you just said, it is interesting that Pike and Number One, you felt like they had worked together for 20 years, that they had that kind of bond that you would see in people who had just worked together so long they can finish each other's sentences,
Yeah.
So they did have fantastic chemistry. But I was going to bring up, because I did really love the season overall. I see the weaknesses. I take everyone's points and I agree. And there's certain things that I wish had been followed up on. One thing I hope to see them do more of maybe is, more of the round table talking, more of the discussion without it. You get into this quandary. And I do think that creatives listen to this. And it's too bad, because you have these criticisms of being too talky, you see it across the board. I've listened to it from a million people with Game of Thrones last week, it was too talky. And it's like, well, you've got to have conversations. You've got to have discussions. And I think we'd see more development that we want to see that seems familiar if we could have a little more of those, meetings. It doesn't have to be with a chief engineer. It can just be our characters. But I do want to say what I found positive, and what I think, looking back at this season, that I really loved. That was not the kind of theme that people are always looking for, but it was kind of a season about disconnection. Hugh was disconnected from himself. Michael was disconnected from Spock. You had various little, and how to solve that disconnection, which in the end for everybody, it was reaching out, was not to push away. And you kind of see this repeated in little, so you see it repeated in little ways throughout the season and some big ways, especially with Spock and Burnham. And so I do feel that there was an undercurrent of theme there that they handled really well. The big ideas, yes, we had some lack of vision for the big baddie or for certain, really big elements. But I feel like character thematics, they did so well, and that's what I really connected with throughout the whole season. You had Saru disconnected from his planet and his family, and then he lost his ganglia, and he had to learn himself all over again. So you did have that running through the entire season, really. And
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. That's something that we have pointed out a little bit, I feel like, and I'm glad you brought it up, because even when I feel like the show sometimes goes off the rails with a plot point that maybe I'm not that invested in, they found good places to have good character moments. Now, some of those moments I prefer chasing more than others. Some I feel like kind of get overplayed or whatever the case may be. Uh, but they have taken more time in Discovery than in previous Star Trek series to focus in on a character and multiple of kind of the second tier characters, not always just the stars of the show, but you go to the co-stars and other characters and give them their moment at least and show some complexity, show some backstory and background for them. It can be argued how much of that you want or how much of it is maybe too melodramatic, but they are taking the time to do that. And hopefully we're pointing that out when it happens. And Ken, you raised a good question a couple of weeks ago. Was all of that earned? Sometimes it's earned, sometimes not. But hats off to them for putting that in there. We talked when we did our discussion about the original series how these characters are such fan favorites, Uhura and Chekhov and Sulu. But then you get through the original series and you go, yeah, they really didn't have a whole lot to do. I really don't know anything about these people at all. It's only because of the movies that they came back and at least got a moment that it helped to cement who they are.
Yeah.
That's definitely true of a lot of the TOS people, except I would argue for Uhura. I think Uhura actually got a couple of really standout moments, especially the one where I think Spock says to her, "Nobody else can do this but you." I mean, he entrusts a lot to her in those times, but yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things that were, yes, about sort of these characters reaching out to each other. At the same time, it felt like some of the more problematic things they were saying, well, no, it'll just be fine. Just be fine with it. I'm thinking particularly about Culber. Culber went through so much bad stuff this season and last season, obviously, what with his, being dead. It just he was basically told by a couple of people, well, just go ahead and get over it. Because I lost somebody that I care about, so you should be with that person, or loving somebody is a decision, so why don't you just go ahead and decide to love this guy? I mean, there was and that was not introduced as a theme, although it could have been. I know there are a lot of people who think that Wilson Cruz played PTSD amazingly well in that episode, but we kind of swept his having been dead for a year, not really dead actually, but it turns out being hounded for all that amount of time by things that were sort of scary and trying to kill him. We kind of swept that under the rug a bit. Yeah, which now it sounds like I'm complaining. I'm sorry. I do like the emotional moments that we did get, especially the earned ones. I think. I did want to ask you, John, and I'll ask you, Karen, as well, and anybody else. How about Burnham saying to Sarek, "Please take care of Spock," and he's like, "Hey, he started it."
Yeah.
Right?
Well, what else do you expect?
Yeah, it's from the third worst father in the galaxy, I think.
Yes.
Well, I kind of feel they're like that happens if you don't talk to each other. You don't know what the other person is actually thinking, and you can have this whole disconnect of hey, he doesn't want me to talk to him. I'm not going to talk to him. Oh, I disappoint him. He doesn't even want to talk to me. I mean, I can actually see that in a fuller sense playing out in the moment, in a tiny moment like that. I don't know if that carries, but on the other hand, I totally have
Oh, sure.
kind of been there in some ways. So,
Yeah, and you honestly have to have Sarek say that at that point too, because otherwise Michael Burnham says, "Take care of Spock," and he's like, "Oh, I will." So I mean, you at least have to have him explain why he's not gonna, because he's not gonna. Karen, we actually do have a few other people lined up. Is there anything else you wanted to hit tonight?
well, the one thing I wanted to mention that you should think about, I was as far as hopes for season 3. I kind of hope that we have a baby Zora. I mean, we've got the ingredients for the AI that ends up in Calypso on the Discovery computer, with Ariam's memories, the computer, and the sphere data, which was protecting itself, but was obviously somewhat integrating into the ship's systems. Is this what births the idea of baby Zora? And what if next year they start to notice little things about the computer, whatever their situation is? And it's like, was that, no. And what if you have a little growth of this AI that they can nurture and turn into a moral AI with a compass that is based in their nurturing and their ideals and their morals? Because control was nurtured by Section 31, all these gray people.
Right. And see how interesting a conversation that would have been to have had at some point during season 2 of Discovery.
But Karen's right. We might get that in season 3. If they suddenly start noticing that, then, it might be Saru or Burnham or whoever who's like, well, kill it quick. And then everybody else might be like, well, hang on a second. Because all it did was make my mochaccino exactly the way I like it.
Right.
Which it learned. So maybe we should teach it to be nicer as well.
From the control situation, because they all know what control was controlled by was Section 31, and none of them have a good feeling about the people running Section 31, and so that's their chance. So I don't know. I think it could create a good situation. I kind of hope we see that.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Hey, Karen, we do have to jump to some other people, but thank you very much for calling in and do it again. Okay.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. I'm not going to give out the number, John, because I think we're stacked. So
yeah, we are.
Go right away to Rose, don't you think?
Yeah. Hey, Rose, what's up tonight?
Hi, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Well, that's great. I only just found about this a couple of hours ago, and I was like, yes, I get to be a part of this.
Fantastic. Are you calling from New Zealand?
Yes, I am.
Wow. All right. How is life in the future?
Well, we're in autumn, so it was 5 degrees last night, and now we're at 20-degree day. So it's wild.
It's like a whole other world. Okay. So what is on your mind tonight, Rose?
My flatmate and I watched, obviously, the finale of Discovery, and it blew our minds. It was amazing. We have absolutely thoroughly enjoyed the second season. You really hit the ground running there with that, from the writers to the character development, to the directors, and yeah, really staked your claim in Trek universe, I'd have to say.
What was the thing that did it for you most in season 2?
Oh, it's quite a few different things. I mean, my favorite characters are Saru and Tilly. But in season 2, when Pike and Spock turned up, well, that kind of added to the list of favorite characters. My friend, he likes Ariam. So when Ariam, what happened to her, we were just like, what just happened? So many different things. When Saru lost his ganglia and turned into a predator species, and he was going full teenager mode, you make me do this, not, oh, I don't know, maybe I won't do this. He's just turning around going, you're telling me what to do, you better give me a reason why. Like, that was absolutely chilling to see the difference, and then how he kind of evened out after a while with Pike's nurturing kind of. He's a really amazing captain, the Pike that was chosen. and handles all of the crew with just kind of this stoic nobility that's come in, that's very, very different to obviously Kirk. So yeah.
You bring up an interesting point. I wonder what Saru is going to be like without an obvious commander. Because I mean, obviously, when he was kind of being nurtured, as you say, by Giorgio back on the Shen show a million years ago, and then certainly he was performing under Lorca, but I mean, obviously wasn't nurtured by him.
No.
Went through this really drastic change with Pike, who we discussed earlier, may be the most Starfleet captain that Starfleet has ever produced.
Yeah, totally.
And now he's not going to have anybody who is automatically his superior 1,000 years from now. It'll be curious to see whether they explore that, or if they just, keep making him sort of the sassy guy who used to be afraid of everything and isn't anymore.
Well, we're just doing a rewatch of season 1, just to get that back in our heads, knowing what we know now. And the episode where Lorca gets basically kidnapped and Saru takes the command chair, and Burnham's coming at him and Stamets is coming at him about we can't use the tardigrade, and he basically flips his nut at them, saying, "Do not usurp me. I'm in charge. You keep looking down at me because of who I am or what I am. Don't do that." It's like he's really hurt by them, and he's using that instead of an actual command. But with season 2, I think he's actually learned correctly how to command when needed to. So when we're heading into the future, I feel like he might actually be able to kind of spread his wings a little bit easier than, say, it was in season 1.
Keith in the chat says, Captain Saru, he'll cut you, man.
Yeah. Maybe just throw some spikes at you.
I was going to say, well, he's got that knife of his sister's, and then he's got the teeth that come out of his neck. So really, there are any number of ways he could get you. Plus, he's strong, and he's got hooves. So really,
the wicked kick out of him. Yeah.
Any number of ways he could get you. Hey, Rose, go ahead.
My main question though is, I've got 2 questions. The first one is, because we're jumping into the future, will we get futuristic remake uniforms? Because so far all of the other uniforms are set in stone. Will we get to see a new Starfleet uniform?
Well, will there still be a Starfleet? Is actually probably the first question, and then are there better uniforms?
Very true, very true.
See, my gut reaction would be to say no, that they'll probably stick with what they have, because they're in totally uncharted territory. It is kind of that Voyager premise, just say like, okay, if we are completely away from everything that we know, everything that we understand, how do we stay who we are? Do we want to stay who we are? What are the principles we stick to? But of course, there's sort of a technological barrier there too. They have the technology that they took with them, and presumably all the patterns in the replicator that they took with them. So, we'll see. I would say that uniforms stay. And what was your other question?
And my other question is what I think quite a lot of other people are asking, as well as the petition that I'm pretty sure everyone is aware of. Where's our Pike spinoff?
Yeah. Yes. Right. From your mouth to CBS's ears, I think is really the big scary eyes, ears would be the way to hopefully have that happen. Hey, thank you very much. I can't believe you called in all the way from New Zealand. Do it again sometime,
thank
okay?
You for letting me call in.
Absolutely.
Till next time, Rose.
Thank you.
And looks like we have waiting for us now. It's Matthew. Let's go over to Matthew. Let's see here. Oh, I believe. Let's see. We need to unmute Matthew. And there we go. Yeah.
Done.
Okay.
Wow. What's on your mind tonight, Matthew?
What's up?
This is you're keeping it international. This is Japan.
Oh wow!
Staff meeting when you guys do this, so I'm happy to be on vacation and call.
Wow, right on. As ELO said, all over the world.
Yeah. So I think we finally crossed the line where Discovery has its Star Trek DNA for me. I watched season 1. I kind of liked it. I listened to Mission Log and watched it again a few months later. Started to really like it. Sent it to my dad here for Christmas, thinking he was going to hate it. He loved it. So I've been through season 2, but we're spending this vacation week mainlining through season 2 of Discovery now.
Wow. All right. So you finished season 2 so far?
Well, he's stuck on Talos 4 at the moment, but he doesn't care about spoilers, so we're good.
Oh, okay. Because I was about to say, I'm very sorry that we just spoiled everything for you.
No, we're good with the spoilers. But from last night's a possible trivia question for you guys, going back would be, what's cooler, time crystals or time tsunamis?
Well, well, see, that is a better trivia. We asked time crystals or Folgers crystals. Clearly,
I chose Folgers for that. Yes.
Yeah, clearly the winner would be time crystals. But regardless, that's time tsunami. You do not want to be stuck in at all. Hey, let me ask you guys a question. Going forward, do you have any specific hopes, aspirations, something you want to see in series 3? I pose that to both of you, even though Dad has not finished season 2 yet.
Well, we glimpsed it back in Enterprise. Do you remember that? Far Future Enterprise.
Yes.
You want to see that?
Sure.
Right.
No, I've been thoroughly entertained by the last 2 years worth of production and creation. But it's extremely entertaining. That the production values are terrific. I am somewhat impaired in my hearing, so I get to watch it 4 or 5 times and pick up something every time. But it's great entertainment. I'll go for whatever they want to deal out.
Excellent. Very
But
cool.
I have some old-timey comments down the line if you want.
Yeah, he's an original TOS watcher. He got me into the show when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
So we connected with TOS, we connected with TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. I like those. We never connected much. Enterprise, we did a little. And movies, I always call great movies terrible Trek. The Abrams verse.
Well, I think we did this last week or 2 weeks ago. I think Beyond actually hits Trek on some levels, but yeah, I get what you're saying. But they are fun movies, either way. I hate to do this, John. We should move on, shouldn't we? I don't want to.
I know we got 3 or 4 more people standing by, but
we had a fantastic time, guys.
Enjoy your time overseas. Thank you so much for calling in. Live long and prosper to both of you, and please let's do this again, okay?
There it goes.
Yeah, please give us a call back because we'd love to hear from you again.
Take care.
Really quickly, I want to remind people after this show, you're going to want to stay on Facebook and check out another Roddenberry podcast. It is Priority One, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast, each Tuesday at 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific. Elijah, Kenna, and Anthony bringing news from all over the Star Trek multiverse. So when we are done here, grab a snack, then come back, go to facebook.com/Priority One podcast, check out what they do. And if you can't join them live, go to podcast.roddenberry.com and you'll find their show there and all the other shows from the Roddenberry Podcast Network. And with that bit of business out of the way, we're back into the business of the show.
Okay, and the next business is going to be headed up by Josh. So Josh, I hate that we're coming up against the clock here, but we want to get through as many callers as we can. So what have you got for us tonight?
Yeah, basically, let's start this way. How familiar are you with the Harry Potter series?
Fairly.
Very little. Ken much more so.
Well, suffice it to say, as I watched season 2, it occurred to me that the Red Angel storyline bore a striking resemblance to the events of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
With the time turner, you mean?
Yeah. Well, not just that. The whole late in the book, Harry and his friends witnessed several plot threads coming to a head in rapid fire succession, just as Discovery was tracking down the first 3 signals. And it culminated in Harry's experience seeing someone conjuring a Patronus, and he thought it might have been his dead dad, just as they captured the Red Angel, and they found out it might have been Harry or Burnham's mom. So yeah, in essence, to make a long story short, in short, the Red Angel turns out to be, for all intents and purposes, Michael Burnham's Patronus.
That's an interesting idea. I mean, it's honestly, when you brought up Harry Potter, I thought what you were going to do was the captain of Discovery as the Defense Against Dark Arts.
That's another theory I've got.
Yeah, because that's sorry, you don't understand that joke, John.
No, I don't. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Basically, the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor gets changed every year, either because they go off to do something else, they get promoted to something else, or they get, either killed or, in some other way ruined by having that job, which so far has kind of been like being captain of Discovery.
Well, thank you for having me on. You might remember me from the comment section. I'm sort of a semi-regular commenter on the regular show. But anyway.
Oh, fantastic.
Thanks again. Take care.
Thank you very much for calling in. We do appreciate it. Just barreling right through. It's our friend Benjamin. Friend Benjamin on the line. What's up tonight, Benjamin?
Hey, fellas, how you guys doing?
Uh-oh.
Doing all right.
Barely hear you, but doing okay. What sexy pinball machine are you next to tonight?
I'm next to a Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Nice. There we go. Now I can see it. Beautiful.
It's the pinball that reminds you of when Star Trek was better. That's right. My phaser 2 is set to stun tonight.
Nice. Wait. I'm right there with you.
There you go. There you go. Wait, I don't have any phasers on this wall.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of crazy. You got every other Star Trek toy, though, so really don't.
I know.
Hey, what's on your mind tonight, Benjamin?
What's on my mind is that this show really reminds me of why fan fiction remains in the realm of fan fiction. I'm really disappointed in Star Trek Discovery, and I hate saying that. I was really excited about a new Trek show. I was an early booster for the idea. I loved the name. I loved what that seemed to promise. And this feels like fan fiction run amok. I don't inherently have a problem with the idea that Spock had a sister that we didn't know about, but having everybody leap into the future is kind of Star Trek's way of being like, but in the end, it was all a dream. It feels phony, it feels forced, and it feels unnecessary. And I don't know that it enriches anything about the Star Trek that I've known until now at all. And there are ways that they could have told an interesting story about a person living in Vulcan and having to confront that culture without leaning into known characters for no real constructive purpose. That's point one, but please butt in if you need to.
Well, I will say really quickly, I keep coming back to it. I'm excited about going 1,000 years in the future because it's 1,000 years in the future. Now, you could say, why didn't they just start that way? And I might be with you, except at the very least, with the last 2 seasons, they've given us characters whose names we know and who we have some sort of relationship with before we go to something that, a lot of people are going to have trouble understanding. And I'm not saying, go ahead.
I read an article once about, if they took somebody from medieval times and pulled them forward into today, it's possible that they might just simply die of shock because they would have no frame of reference for anything that was going on just walking down the street. And there's something about pushing everything so far into the future that I find kind of uncompelling because we may as well just be fantasy at that point. Why bother grounding it in science fiction at all? I mean, the science that would exist would be that Arthur C. Clarke thing that they kind of name checked back in episode 2 of this season when I was very excited about the show.
Well, assuming that things have gone well.
Sure, but if they haven't, then it's just a wasteland, and that's no fun.
Yeah, well, dude, I mean, they're taking. I mean, it feels like they're taking risks doing it.
If I wanted more dark science fiction, I would stick with Black Mirror, which is fantastic, but I always feel like I'm going to get it every time I tune into it.
Yeah, I get that. You know what I hate is, so we're sort of doing the same kind of thing next week, except we're also doing it with a guest, and assuming it's the guest that we think we have, I'm actually going to encourage you to call back next week because the guest that we think we have is somebody who writes science fiction, and the kinds of things that you're bringing up are the kinds of things that I would love to have somebody who actually does this.
I'd be psyched to talk about it.
Yeah, but please do give us a call back early next week. Unfortunately, we've hit the clock again, John.
Yeah, we have. And but again, we will see you, Benjamin. Again, we will be back talking more disco next week in our two-parter season 2 wrap up. And as Ken mentioned, we should have that special guest on to go even deeper into the ideas and ideals of Discovery. So until then, Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, executive producer Rod Roddenberry, technical production on Mission Log Live by Earl Green. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from the Roddenberry Podcast Network, including not just Mission Log, but also Women at Work, Priority One, and the Trek Files. If you'd like to support Mission Log directly, give us a look over at patreon.com/Mission Log. Some fun items there, including early access videos to Mission Log. Thanks to everyone who joined us live or later, and we will talk to you next week.